If there is a problem and there are three people who can really add value to solving that problem, those three will be involved. That's core to how Kunal works, or the culture that has Kunal and a bunch of leaders at Cred. There's some marquee leaders at Cred, right, who have built together. So I hail from a very middle-class Maharashtrian family. My dad is a retired professor of an engineering college. I would be probably the only person in our whole family who has not done a master's. I could not speak fluent English, not even understand alphabets until I was in 5th standard, because I was in a Marathi school, conventional Marathi school, until 4th standard. So I think I did not plan to come in startups at all. I loved mechanical engineering until that point. And I still say that, hey, if not marketing, I'd have definitely done something in mechanical. I got a role right out of my campus. I got into Mahindra R&D, right? Which is like a dream job to get out of a college, and the first job, the first high paying job that you get, right? And I went in to join on the first day, and I onboarded on the company. The manager explained me what the role is, and I soon realized that this role does not require brains. So coming back, I called my dad saying, I'm quitting, right? I don't want to do this job because this will basically rot me for the next multiple decades of my life, right? And after that 1.5 years, what I essentially did is, I was like, advertising is something fascinating. Let's build a company in advertising. So I built an advertising agency right out of college, had no business understanding, did not understand how to hire people, that was not a great operator, failed miserably in building that company. So what ended up happening is I honed my skills a lot in terms of how I carry myself around people, how do I get people's trust, how do I speak to them, how do I solve their problem, and stuff like that. So it helped me do like a sort of a psychology course in general, right? I realized that there are 3 companies in India which has majority of those companies consulting, right? These 3 companies, one of the company was Saurabh, which is based out of Pune, right? The other one was based in Singapore, the other one was based in Gurgaon, right? Essentially, I literally sent a cold DM to that company saying, I want to work, I don't care what the role is, right? Fast forward, I worked in that company for 13 months. The company went from 40 people to 2,000 people. And it got sold for, half of the company got sold for 800 crores. One of the things that I learned there was how distribution works for e-commerce. And that led me to say that, okay, cool, Pune is a great market, but it's still very limited market. And that led me to saying, okay, let me go to Bangalore and let me figure out, right? Let me figure out. So I just literally took a one-way ticket. Jet Airways was still operating, by the way. Very interestingly, right, one of the reasons why GrowthX exists is when I landed in Bangalore, I did not have a single person to do breakfast with because I didn't know anyone here, right? I think that day I had decided that I'm going to build the largest network for myself. Bangalore had a lot of startups. I went to Koramangala in one of the companies I was consulting. And I entered the building, and there were at least 200 companies working out of that building, right? This is the building above Truffles in Koramangala, right? And I think that led me to go into interesting companies at Dunzo, and all of them happened through referrals. Dunzo was a really small company back then, by the way. We used to operate out of 91 Springboard on 80 feet road. But I went in and I think I had 3-4 chats, and then I was like, yeah, this is something interesting, right? I mean, I could do this, right? And I joined in like 15 days. I gave a notice to all my consulting gigs and I just joined in. And after I joined in, I think it's been an interesting run across internet companies on Dunzo and Cred. I think I had a cultural shock to go from Dunzo to Cred because the problem statement was very different, and that was the challenging part and the exciting part, right? Which is you don't need to acquire in a single geography, you need to acquire people based on, okay, their credit score, right? And that is a very different way to think about a product than otherwise, right? I think Cred happened because I met some incredible people at Dunzo, and one of the person was Irman. He used to lead our whole B2B monetization at Dunzo. My co-founder at GrowthX, right, Udayan, right, he comes from fintech because he used to work at Razorpay, right? So he helped me understand a lot of these nuances on how fintech works and how it is completely different from anything that you'll do. Right? If there is a problem and there are 3 people who can really add value to solving that problem, those 3 will be involved. That's core to how Kunal works, or the culture that has Kunal and a bunch of leaders at Cred. There's some marquee leaders at Cred, right, who have built together. And you have to give it to them that they have built the culture and they scaled it to like now over 1,000 people. I don't even know how many people work at Cred now. UD and I work together at Socrates, and we know each other from last 8 years. And We were the most high energy people on the floor, one of the most high energy people. We used to play foosball together, by the way. Intense match. He's a forward, I'm a defense in foosball. And I think that created a friendship, which is, we didn't really had a lot of common projects, but I think foosball got us together, like playing something together. And I think we stayed in touch a lot. A lot of my decision making of coming to Bangalore is influenced by my co-founder, right? Like for example, if you put both of us in a room and ask you to take a decision, most probably we'll have the similar framework to take the decision. We might arrive at a different decision, but the framework to take the decision is very aligned on how we think about it, right? If you take total number of public stage companies in the US, there are a lot of public stage companies. If you take the top 50, the percentage of internet companies in US are way higher than conventional in the top 10, right? Now compare that to the Nifty 50 index in India. So when we say that, hey, startups are all the boom in India, we haven't even started, right? We're still very, very early to that curve. The only two things that can stop it is, one is companies not scaling fast enough, and second, companies not able to generate right profits and right revenue and business models, right? That's exactly what GrowthX solves for. GrowthX solves for companies to grow their revenues, right? And especially early stage companies. Startups require a very different kind of people. And no learning or community in India solves for specifically leaders inside internet companies. And I think that's the whole inspiration behind GrowthX, right? Because when I was at Cred and Yudi was at Razorpay, we both used to struggle at specific growth problems, right? Saying, hey, how do I go from point A to point B now, right? I figured out 0 to A, right? And we started doing these weekend long conversations, right? So we used to call them GrowthX sessions, right? So bunch of friends, I used to write on LinkedIn back then. I used to invite 6 people every weekend, and we used to ask them, what growth problem are you solving in a company? And we used to discuss them for straight 6 hours, right? So we used to invite 6 people, 45 minutes of discussions, 15 minutes of they writing down the experiment, is to go and implement that in their companies. We did this for at least 1.5 years. We did more than 50 editions of this. So we had a community before even thought about the idea of GrowthX, right? We were like, yeah, I want to solve growth problems and I want to learn from people. That was the selfishness behind starting the community, right? I want to learn, I want to compound, right? And I think that led us to say that, okay, there are 2 problems that are important. First, people don't understand how structure works when you're solving for revenue, right? Second, people love solving problems together. People want to solve something together. The best connections in your life, you're made when you have solved something together with someone. That's the core of GrowthX, right? Which is structure and solving it together. These are the 2 core foundations. Building product is not enough. Getting right distribution, getting redistribution is super critical, right? And I think that's exactly what GrowthX does, right? It essentially creates a pathway. It's like a co-pilot for people to go from early stage to mid-career to leadership. This is what exactly the product does, right? And right now it feels like, hey, this seems like a very narrow problem. I think 10 years from now, I firstly don't have a dream for GrowthX, I have a dream for India, right? Which is, if I look at the top 100 public stage companies in India, at least 40% should be internet companies. I think that's dream 1. Second, every freaking founder of this company and every freaking growth leader or business leader should be a GrowthXer, actively involved in learning, upskilling on the job, off the job. So I'll tell you something interesting, right? I have done an SIP when I was a minor. I was literally in 10th standard, right? Because my family has a lot of history of investing into equity. I had Reliance stocks from my first scholarship that I got. Just whole investing is super natural to me in terms of when it comes to investing in public markets, because I've done that for so many years, right? I'm potentially the only person you would ever speak who has never liquidated a position in equity. I've never liquidated anything in any equity portfolio. But I think I am super new to whole angel investing, right? I do not understand how companies are valued. I'll be very honest. I do not understand how to value some idea. I don't think I have the skill set or the specific knowledge that is required, which a lot of great people in the ecosystem have, right? What I do understand though is I can spot a great operator when I work with one, right? So for example, with stable money, right? Saurabh came to GrowthX as a member, right? And I saw Saurabh on the kind of questions he's asking, the way he interacts, the way he treats people, the pedigree he brings and the humbleness he brings to the room, right? And I think that is critical when you invest in a company. I would essentially take a very long bet on India and Indian founders, right? So I only invested in Indian founders. I've only invested in people who I have closely seen being an amazing operator, right? Like all my founder investments are either ex-cred, people who are GrowthX members, founders that I have genuinely helped or worked really close with. I don't invest saying, okay, because you are at some pedigree, I'll invest. No, until I've seen you as a core operator, because I think that's a core thing that you need when you are a seed stage founder. That are you like gonna roll your sleeves up and actually gonna do stuff, right? Or are you gonna just sit and hire a chief of staff when you're a seed stage, right? That's the last thing I want when I am thinking of my investments, especially in startups.